Have you filed your taxes?
Of course, already I did.
The April 30th tax deadline is right around the corner. Are you ready?
Have you filed your taxes?
No.
If you're not looking forward to it, you're not alone.
A lot of Canadians have troubles filing their taxes. It feels really complicated, it feels very stressful.
But it doesn't have to be. Our tax expert will help you minimize the pain and maximize the gain this year. Well, with just a couple of weeks to go before the deadline, let's check in with David Rotfleisch, a tax lawyer and chartered accountant. And David, we asked you, what would be at the top of your list for our viewers when it comes to taxes? And number one, you said, was to file on time. Why is that so important?
The reason it's so important, and the reason why we tell clients, we tell taxpayers, we tell everybody on taxpage.com that if you don't file your return on time, you've incurred an immediate 10% penalty for nothing. Because eventually you are going to file your return or you're going to go to jail. So you're going to file the return, why not file it on time? Okay, you can't afford to pay. I understand, it's a problem. You may have cash flow later on, you may not have cash flow later on, but regardless, if you file the return by April 30th, you avoid that immediate 10% penalty. What happens if you don't owe taxes? Well, then you probably get a refund, so you might as well file as well. And if you don't file it by April 30th, you're going to forget about it. You know, who thinks about filing tax returns on July 15th?
Yes.
So file your return, April 30th.
Okay. Number two on your list is dealing with medical expenses. What's your short bit of advice on that?
So Einstein famously said the hardest thing in the world, or the most difficult thing in the world to understand, is the income tax. Medical expenses goes into that category. So you'd think it's very straightforward. However, the way you can claim medical expenses is for any 12-month period ending in the calendar year. So you could claim medical expenses for January 2nd, 2022 to January 1st, 2023. Is that the most advantageous claim to make, or is it a claim from mid-2022 to mid-2023? Also, should you claim it? Should your spouse claim it? How do you go about claiming it? So these are calculations that, on the face of it, are somewhat complex. It's not just a question of let's accumulate them all in a box and claim them all. You have to time when you're claiming your expenses. There are also expenses that you might not think of. For example, if you have to travel more than 40 kilometers for medical treatment, that's deductible. If you had to renovate your house to make it more accessible because you have a disability, that's a deductible expense.
So you're a tax lawyer, you're a chartered accountant, as I mentioned. I mean, how does the average person who doesn't want to hire somebody figure out how to navigate what to do with those medical expenses?
So if you are the average person and you have minimal expenses, you probably fake it. But if you have any substantive amount of medical expenses, and also there is a floor 3% of net income before you can even claim your medical expenses, it probably is cost justified to retain an accountant to do these calculations for you.
All right, we sent our producer Andrew out to talk to some people on the street and asked some people if they have tax questions. I want to play one of those for you now.
I wonder to what degree the work from home tax benefit is still in play now that we're kind of in this flexible world of sometimes we work from home and sometimes we don't. Sometimes there's a 1 day a week we work from home. Does that mean we get to still claim that on our taxes?
David, what's your answer for her?
Well, the twist at the end, 1 day a week, makes it a little more difficult. So one of the benefits of COVID is that CRA is much more relaxed now about claiming at-home work expenses. So you can definitely claim home office expenses in the right circumstances. So there are a number of hoops to go through as usual. The first one is you have to have a form from your employer, a form T2200, that says, my employee has to work from home and can claim expenses. Once you have that, if you work a minimal or if you work a prescribed amount of time from home, then you get to claim those expenses. And in order to claim those expenses, you have to file a form T777, so T777 form, and you have to do the calculation of what your expenses are, and then you get to claim them. And those are pre-COVID rules. So the T2200, the T777 are all pre-COVID rules. So we're back to the rules from before, except that CRA now accepts that taxpayers will sometimes do a joint, sometimes home, sometimes office type of arrangement. It's a lot more common, it's a lot more accepted now, whereas before COVID, it wasn't heard of.
I want to squeeze in 2 more questions in less than a minute, so you need to work with me on this, David. I'm sure you will. RRSPs, I assume the advice continues to be max out if you possibly can?
Max out as soon as you can, as early as you can, because it's compound tax-free earnings. Contribute now if you can. Contribute throughout the rest of the year. Don't wait till February 28.
And what about software, the software that can help people with their taxes? Do they work?
Of course they work. They've been working for years. Accountants have used software forever, and the home software now is excellent. It's very useful. It'll take you through, but don't fall into the trap of thinking, I don't need an accountant because I have software. If you have anything that's all out of the ordinary, somewhat complicated, somewhat sophisticated, get an accountant. It's cost justified.
And back to number 1, file on time. David Rotfleisch.
File by April 30th.
Thank you very much for your advice.
My pleasure, Ian.